right, we are going to do 17 years in 15 minutes, and I'm so sorry. In 2006, I launched the first influencer marketing platform called paperpost.com. It was a marketplace that connected bloggers with brands. To say that it was poorly received is an understatement. The industry attacked me. They called me an idiot. They called me evil.
The video we saw earlier today from Paper Post, I found to be appalling. They motivated a mom to turn her kids into shills.
I feel like I've been tricked. It's a corrosive influence. It's corrupting. It makes the internet worse, not better.
He is the most evil person in this.
Later that year, we raised our first round of funding. But money did not stop the critical onslaught. That year, TechCrunch wrote 11 negative articles about us, and they were not alone. Attack after attack after attack. They said sponsored content could never be authentic, and that it would always be of lesser quality. But the biggest issue that people took with what we did was that we did not require people to disclose that content was sponsored. That's because when we launched, I took a cue from other forms of media. And if you look to TV, radio, or the movies, there were no labels for sponsored content. In every other medium, content was just content. There were no laws or guidelines for our space, so we created our own. Within 6 months of launching, we introduced the first disclosure policy. That first year, it was tough. At the end of 2006, the average cost for a sponsored post on a blog was just $7.39. And a big campaign, oh man, if we got $5,000, that was a big day. And if we got $10,000, we were breaking out the tequila. In 2007, we expanded to other platforms like Facebook and Tumblr, and we changed our name to IZEA. Later that year, Mashable crowned us one of the dumbest startups of 2007, an honor that we shared with 23andMe. 2 years later, in 2009, Forrester Research recognized that a new industry had been born. And that same year, we created a platform specialized to selling sponsored tweets. We called it, wait for it, Sponsored Tweets. We were right back into the fire. The Twitterati, they grabbed their pitchforks. I was getting death threats. I want to apologize to everyone in this room. I had a bit of a hat and tongue phase back then, and that's pretty much my biggest regret. Influencer marketing was incredibly controversial in the beginning. But that didn't inhibit our desire to grow this space. That year, we paid Kim Kardashian for this tweet for Armani jeans. And so many people clicked on this tweet so fast that it actually took their server down. We paid her $10,000, a number that was unheard of at that time. And this was a big moment. This is when people started to recognize that there was real money in sponsored content. It was also the time that I realized we needed to be more aggressive about disclosure if we were going to ever get this industry to go mainstream. So in July of 2009, 3 years after we created the first disclosure policy for influencer marketing, I went to the FTC in Washington to help craft the federal guidelines for the space. And from those efforts, the hashtag ad standard was born, clearing the way for our industry to grow in a safe, transparent way. Fun fact, in 2020, a year after we launched Sponsored Tweets, Twitter launched Promoted Tweets, which I think we can all agree is a pretty goofy name. They called it promoted tweets because we had already filed a trademark on sponsored tweets. And we later abandoned it, but they're stuck with the name, and I'm really sorry about that, Elon. Despite the celebrity deals picking up momentum, 2009 and 2010 hit the influencer marketing industry pretty hard. The Great Recession had been driving down average prices for the majority of creators since 2008. And at the same time, traditional publishers, they were getting crushed on CPMs. So they started looking for new ways to monetize. It's funny how time and a recession can change perceptions. In 2010, Gawker said that the majority of their revenue would be sponsored posts within 3 to 4 years. In 2011, Forbes begins to offer sponsored posts on their site. In 2013, the Associated Press does their first sponsored tweet. And by 2015, virtually all publications offer some form of sponsored posts, from Inc. magazine to the Huffington Post. The people and the companies who were the early critics were now doing sponsored posts. So why is this so important? The participation by big media suddenly made it ethical and safe for advertisers. And in doing so, they created more opportunities for creators of all types. From 2013, when the AP did their first sponsored tweet, the average price went from $35 to $580 for a sponsored blog post. 1 year later, it hit $726. The price grew by 98x in the first decade and hit a record of just under $1,500 last year. We have witnessed a tremendous amount of transformation over the past 17 years, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. When I look at the space today, I see a thriving ecosystem. Influencers are getting paid thousands of dollars on average, with some making much, much more. And while we saw a slight dip in the early days of 2020, payments have been on a consistent rise. This means that marketers are finding more and more value in influencers. Even those with small followings can make a decent amount of money starting out. And with time and effort, they can grow their passion into a full-time business. And that's because the industry has solved for these big issues, the ones that we identified at the onset: authenticity, content quality, disclosure. Every day, creators are posting beautiful, authentic creative that rivals, and in many cases, surpasses that of ad agencies. And they're sharing sponsored posts in a safe, transparent way. But I have to tell you, we have got to get ready for a tectonic shift in this industry. All of these issues, they are going to come right back, and they are going to come back with an amount of complexity unlike anything we've ever seen before. What happens when AI enables creators to produce realistic images that place them anywhere doing anything? I believe it is not a question of if, it is a question of when. Our latest research indicates that 66% of influencers already use AI in their daily life, and 38% of influencers are using AI to generate images. Our product team set out to answer a few questions. Number one, can we place a convincing virtual influencer anywhere in the world? Number two, can we place a convincing virtual product in the hands of that virtual influencer? And can we do it all not by investing billions of dollars, but by stitching together open source programs together with our own technology? Our first initiative was to learn how to create AI models that can accurately represent creators just off their social feeds. I volunteered to be the guinea pig. We started out with a set of images from my phone to train our system. And after much tinkering, a masterpiece of AI began to materialize. This image was so real that it was virtually indistinguishable from the real me. All right, it was bad, it was really bad, and it turns out this AI stuff is actually pretty hard. But we kept iterating. one embarrassingly awful attempt at a time, generating countless images and failures in between these gems, until finally one day we got pretty damn close. And it was time to see if we could replicate the process. We wanted to create a repeatable system for training based on humans to be able to do this at scale. So Matt Gray of our team raised his hand and volunteered a set of his own personal photos. Thank you, Matt. Matt, go ahead and stand up here. This is Matt. And you can see that V1 of AI Matt was materially better than V1 AI Ted. Now, what you'll see is that there are lots of Matts. There's happy Matt, there's serious Matt, there's eyebrow Matt. And all of those Matts feed together into an AI model. And once we had that AI model dialed in, we could place Matt anywhere, like New York or Santorini. So can we place a convincing virtual influencer anywhere in the world? Yes, kinda. The images aren't perfect. You can pick apart the imperfections. But can we create an image that pretty much resembles Matt and put him in a city? Yes, we can. We can also create as many photorealistic variations of Matt that we want to. We can do cowboy Matt. We can do hip-hop Matt. We can do emo Matt. And an infinite array of art styles. Cyberpunk action figure Matt, comic book Matt, Funko Matt. We then set out to place Matt inside of existing settings. We started out with the source image from a customer campaign and mashed it together with an AI model we built of Matt. Our early attempts were also pretty poor here, but with additional training, we started to see some relatively realistic images. We then started placing Matt in many different scenarios: painting, meditation, skateboarding, and enjoying the holidays with his dog. We even trained our model based on TikTok dance videos, so we could make Matt look like he was dancing wherever we wanted him to. We then turned our focus on physical products. For this, we took some photos of a Listerine bottle and used these images to train our AI system. And everything that you're going to see here with Listerine, this is just R&D. All of these images were created based off this model that we built. And many of them are beautiful, inspiring, unique, and fun. But one of the current shortcomings of these types of generative AI systems is that they really struggle with things like the shape of a bottle, logos, and text. But it's certainly good enough to help generate concept art and spark creative ideas. So you see that our AI started randomly dressing creators in blue. And this inspired us to come up with an idea for what we call the Listerine Blue Wave. And it also created these images of Listerine in the outdoors, prompting an idea that would focus on Listerine on road trips. And it's not just photos. We can take the same models and feed them into video as well. We can train just about anything. These are concept images that we generated for the Xpeng P5, based completely off of images we found online. So back to the big question. Can we place a convincing virtual product in the hand of a virtual influencer? We took our trained model, we combined it with a Matt, a source image, and a prompt, and we generated a really ugly Matt holding a really ugly bottle. This was Gen 1. Gen 2 improved significantly, but we're not there yet. I'll be the first to say it. The bottle's not right, and Matt's face is not right. But I have zero doubt that this technology, whether it's built by IZEA or others, is going to be a big part of our industry moving forward. The impacts of AI on creativity will not just be on the creator side. 10 minutes ago, we announced the launch of AI Briefs and AI Brainstorms in our product IZEA Flex. And now marketers can produce generative AI briefs and concepts complete with images with the click of a button. Marketers will be using AI. Creators will be using AI. AI-sponsored posts will be a thing. Humans and AI will come together, generating more ideas to get better outcomes, and it is about to be chaos. And I kind of love it. As an industry, we will once again face these same questions. There will be pitchforks, naysayers, maybe a death threat or three. Hopefully, I could do without those, actually. I could do without those. But I've always chosen to look at the upside. The magic that happens when you give people access to new technology, the opportunity that spews from disruption. You can choose to ignore it, you can try to run from it, or embrace it. But if there's one thing that I've learned in the past 17 years, is that this industry continually moves forward. And I can't wait to see what the next 17 years are like. Thank you. I'd now like to welcome Adweek's Chief Executive Officer, Juliette Morris, to come join me on stage.
I don't know about any of you, but he does not seem evil at all. You hide it so well.
Yeah, it's the evil's deep inside.
I think I want to personally thank you for your resilience and fortitude over the last 17 years.
Thank you.
So I was enthralled by that. I would like a AI version of me and my puppies if you ever get a chance. So it was so fascinating where you see things going, and I think it's incredibly exciting, but there's also the human element that comes up in all of this, right? And part of what is so valuable in the influencer and the creator economy is the human.
Yep.
And the human experience. And so with what you were just sharing with everyone, this ability to put people in places they are not at, with products that they are not with, what are the opportunities and your concerns around removing the human element from the whole influencer experience?
Yeah, it's a really touchy subject. I think that there's really two ways that this type of technology is going to be used. One is to kind of enhance a creator's tool sets so that they can come up with ideas, that they can brainstorm together with brands, like, are you thinking this or this? And they can actually like create pitches where the brand can really be like, oh, I can actually see this now. So that's one way that it can be used. I think the other way that it can be used is a completely fabricated virtual influencer that, you know, is producing content, is interacting with an audience that is completely autonomous. And that's the one where I think people start to get a little bit concerned about that. It's like, okay, well, we're completely removing the human element of this. But, you know, if you look at the other parts of our industry, like, there are fictional characters that have huge followings. And they could be cartoons or they could be superheroes, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that ultimately these things are going to coexist.
Do you feel that in that area, you know, so I'm a big Marvel fan, in Groot, people know that, you know, there's not a live tree alien, but when you create an AI personality, do you feel like there should be disclosure around that because it's so close to reality, it's not obvious?
I think that's going to be the next big question for our space, because the technology isn't quite there yet, but I think that we're maybe a year off in terms of being able to do it with at least images. When you can't tell that it's not, or that it's AI generated, should that have to be disclosed? If you look at other areas again of media, if you look at movies, if you look at television, even if you look at a lot of what's happening in social media, people are using visual effects, people are using green screens. A lot of what you're seeing is not. People are using lenses. So a lot of that's not disclosed. So where do we draw the line, right? Like at what point does it become harmful? At what point does it become deceiving? I think that there's a lot of questions that we need to answer.
And what advice would you give brands in the audience around that if they're making decisions to utilize more and more of the AI in this environment where it's not clear?
I think that if you're going to dabble in this now, and I think you should be dabbling in it now, the way that you need to approach it is to be proactive and to disclose it and let the audience know that this is AI-generated content.
So we've got a lot of different brands and marketers and creators in the audience that are all at very different stages of their journey. Is there any advice that you have relative to early practitioners versus people that are a little bit more tenured in the influencer and creator space on how they should be dealing with their approaching generative AI?
I think you really have to jump in. Whether you're new to the space or you've been in the space for a decade, the technology is moving so fast. It's not like anything that I've seen being in this space for almost 2 decades. Everything's kind of slowly progressed, but now you're seeing these huge leaps in technology, like almost weekly. And so if you wait, a year from now, 2 years from now, and your competitors are really getting into this and understand how to use it and understand how to work with creators using this technology, you're just going to be that much further behind.
And what would your advice be if someone came to you and said, we're going to jump into this space? Should we start with a real human and a real personality, or should we jump straight into AI for cost reasons?
I don't think that the tech is quite there yet. If you're looking for an accurate representation of your product and you want your logo to be perfect and those things matter to you, there's not really good generative AI for that yet. There's still a lot of mistakes. You still see 6 fingers. Like there's some weird stuff, but it's progressing so fast that I don't think that those are going to be issues a year from now.
Well, and the reality is, as we've all heard over the last day and a half, building community is so critical within this space, and having authenticity and followers. So to jump right over that community and try to develop one with just AI.
Yeah, and I think that there's the other challenge right now is there's not a huge pool of virtual influencers to choose from that are truly generative AI in everything that they're doing. There are some that had been assisted with like 3D modeling, but if you're talking about just going from a prompt to put this T-shirt of my logo on this influencer, I haven't seen that yet.
Yep. Well, so sticking with the human, someone who really engages the community, and then using generative AI to enhance that.
Yeah, I look at it as it's another tool set. It's something else that the creator and marketer can use together to create more engaging content.
And that's the best for everyone in terms of the results. Where do you showed the past 17 years, you shared what you think will happen over the next year or two, and you said see you in 2040. But what do you think are going to be the biggest shifts in the next 12 months?
I think that you will see this tech get to the point where you cannot distinguish between an actual photograph and something that is generative AI. And when we get there, there's no doubt that it's coming in my mind. I see a lot of stuff now where people are like making fun of it. It's like, oh, this is terrible. I tried to do my headshot with AI and it looks crazy. It looks crazy now, but just think how far it's come in such a short period of time. When it gets to full video, that's when things I think are going to really get crazy. Because once the images are nailed down, it's not going to take long to actually get to a point.
And an incredible opportunity for creators and influencers when it goes to
It's an incredible opportunity. It's also going to be, I think, incredibly disruptive for all the social platforms, because anybody will be able to do this. It's going to be like the ultimate leveling of the creative field. You don't have to be a great photographer. You don't have to be a great videographer. You don't have to be a 3D animator. You just need to be able to craft a prompt. And a lot of that stuff now, you're just copying and pasting it off of a website.
Yep. Oh, it's exciting to see where things are going, and we're thrilled that you were able to share your journey with us and
Thank you for
and some of
inviting
your
me.
thoughts, and thank you for fighting the fight for influencers all these years. Thank you to Ted.
Thank you.